Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're talking about our top fantasy football sleepers for 2020. Specifically, we're giving you our top 6 super deep running back sleepers. These are the running backs who are going to save you in this COVID fantasy football season. And you should target them if you want to win your draft, to win your league. Let's start this fantasy football podcast right meow.
Hit that drop. Hello and welcome to the Fantasy Football Upside. I am Justin. Kyle will point at himself as to who he is. We always like to start off by saying thanks for checking out our Fantasy Football Podcast and YouTube channel. We definitely appreciate it. If you haven't caught us before, we like to have a good time, but we like to penetrate your ears with some fantasy football knowledge. So definitely thank you for checking us out. So today we're going deep into some COVID deep sleepers. Oh yeah, we're going there. So, yeah, Kyle and I were kind of bouncing this back and forth. This is going to be a really odd year, and it depends on how your league is set up. But, we're going to go ahead and call this our COVID deep sleepers because it might be one of those things where you're going to have to dive deep into, the pool of players. So that's why we wanted to release this episode.
Yeah, like regular redraft leagues, I think that the majority solution to the COVID issue with COVID IR is to add just roster spots and draft more. I think that's the best solution in those instances. So I think a lot of people are probably drafting a lot more players than they anticipated they would.
Absolutely. So. And you made some adjustments to our league as well when it comes to that. What exactly did you do just to let everybody know? And then maybe that's something they can copy as well.
Yeah, we're a keeper league though, so it's slightly different. And to try to maintain the spirit and competitiveness of our keeper league, I didn't want to add roster spots and I didn't want to have a deeper draft. Yep. And we have a pretty active waiver transactional type of deal, but we don't have a whole lot of trades usually. So what I wanted to make sure was that we maintain the spirit of our league. And so what I ended up doing was just adding a bunch of COVID IR spots for our league. And that way people can keep a guy who might be somebody that they wanted to keep later after the season is over on their roster, and then they could fill in that spot pretty easily.
And it's also like you don't want to drop someone that's God forbid, somebody that you really know that's a first-round pick or something like that. You don't want to have to stash him on the bench just because he's been put on the COVID list or anything like that. And that's something we probably recommend as well. So what else you got for me, Kyle, before we head?
All right, guys. So make sure you go ahead and make sure you hit that subscribe button as well as the bell so that you get notified every time we upload our podcast. We like to give you all kinds of different ideas and information that's going to help you win your league this year. And so we want to get you there, get you to that championship, and we're going to ride with you the whole season. And it's no reason to delay any further. Let's dive headfirst into the shallow end and start with our COVID deep running back sleepers. All right. These are guys who, as we describe them, are drafted at roughly 188, 190 or higher as far as like the picks go. So, Justin, who do you have for your first running back COVID deep sleeper?
And as of our recording right now, Antonio Gibson would still kind of fall in that range right now, and that's who I have for the Washington football team, who still has not picked a name. He's going as ADP running back 52 and overall 188. And I'm using Fantasy Pros composite ADP, so they use a few different ones like Fantrax, My Fantasy League, and I think was it Fantasy Football Calculator is another one that they use. And
they have Yahoo's rankings and other stuff. They have other. It depends on what you're looking at, but
absolutely. And as of this recording, he still falls in that range. So it's definitely one of those things where I would definitely try to grab him when you still can here towards the end of the drafts that you have. If you're in a 16 round, 14, 15 round, you're still able to get him there towards the end. And this all has to do with Darius Guice being released. Yeah. He was the presumed starter. Adrian Peterson is still there. They still have Peyton Barber. Bryce Love is a guy as well. Kind of depends on if he comes back.
I would slot him, though, back behind Gibson right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And Gibson's a unique kind of guy. He's a Swiss Army knife. I mean, he played wide receiver a lot in college. He also played running back as well. He had quite a few carries, but it's kind of a Swiss Army knife. And it's one of those things where I'm really curious to see what they do to get him on the field. And he's just so talented. I think they're going to find ways to manufacture touches and it might be a little more boom or bust, but it's one of those things where it could really bust for you quite well. So
Yeah.
that's who I have as my first COVID deep sleeper. What do you got for your first running back sleeper for me?
All right. So for my first running back sleeper, deep sleeper, COVID deep sleeper, right?
COVID deep.
I have Anthony McFarland Jr. of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And he's currently running back 60, according to Fantasy Pros consensus ADP, going right around 188 in my fantasy league, 220 in Fantrax is where they've got him ranked.
Dang.
And so he's averaging right now across the board at 204, pick 204 in the drafts. So that's roughly the 18th round, maybe a little. No, what is it? Like, that's right around 20th round or something. So it's pretty deep, pretty late.
Yeah.
He's got competition right now with Benny Snell for backup carries, but they do anticipate him getting somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 to 6 carries right off the bat per week. If for any reason Connor were to go down, and that is a possibility, right, with James Conner, then I think actually McFarland is not going to take over the lead dog role there, but he is going to get a lot more work. Benny Snell slots in as a more durable starter type of running back. So what you're really getting here is a guy who's like a third down and goal line back, but his moves and his speed are off the charts for a guy of his size. It's crazy. He's small, compact, but big. And so it's an interesting guy, and he does have some value right now for you. And with these deep sleepers that we're talking about, guys, these are not guys that you're necessarily looking at like getting immediate value out of. They're going to have value because somebody goes down with an injury, or somebody gets put on the IR for 2 weeks for the for the COVID IR, and easy for me to say, right? And as a result, these guys slot in for a temporary value, and that's one way you got to beat your team, beat the other people in your league, is by having those guys that they would want otherwise. So
you really can't ignore kind of James Conner situation.
Yeah,
I mean, the dude beat cancer, but he's still very, suspect to potential infections or anything like that. And that's, we like to have a good time on this podcast and everything like that. But that's a serious situation. That's something you have to kind of look out for. So if there's something that happens during the league or with the Pittsburgh Steelers or something like that, don't be shocked or alarmed if James Conner decides to opt out. And there's not a single person probably in the NFL world that would think otherwise if he did that.
No, nobody would give him. Nobody would give him any grief of any kind.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
And if they did, they can come talk to me.
Right. They can go talk to the entire rest of the
Steelers.
But so for my second one, I have Trayveon Williams of the Cincinnati Bengals, and he is going as ADP NR, as in not ranked. And that's basically up to like 300 players, I think, is what Fantasy Pros is doing right now.
Makes sense.
There's a couple factors whenever I was looking at it, and one is Rodney Anderson was actually released, who was the backup. But he was a somewhat standout for Oklahoma. Rodney Anderson was, and there was a little bit of buzz. I mean, we like to talk about the fantasy footballers here every once in a while, and I can't remember which one it was. It's the one in the middle. Whatever his name, he was riding the Rodney Anderson train for quite a while recently. And a lot of it, I think, has to do with the fact that Joe Mixon has kind of threatened to hold out. And when you threaten to hold out, I mean, there's some statistics out there that show if you hold out any part of training camp or anything like that, you're at a little bit of a risk of an injury or a little slow start or something like that. And that's all you need. And, Giovanni Bernard is definitely still there, but he's not really one of those, okay, he's the exact replacement for Joe Mixon. That's not a thing. It's more Trayveon Williams could be the exact replacement, and then Giovanni Bernard just has the same similar role of the same role back. Yeah. So that's why Trayveon Williams, I think, is a potential nice little stash at the end of the bench if you have a big roster.
Yeah. And if you have those big rosters, I think that you can break the rules about who you handcuff with. So if you do end up with Joe Mixon in the first or second, back of the first, start of the second round, somewhere in that neighborhood,
don't be afraid to throw him in there.
Don't be afraid to go ahead and snag him at the back of that of your draft. If you're going like 22 rounds or something, then it's really that's not a concern. So for my next running backs, COVID deep sleeper, I have Carlos Hyde, actually. Definitely a name everybody knows and has heard before. I have Carlos Hyde because the Seattle Seahawks, I kind of feel like they don't know what they're doing with the running back situation right now. Like, I don't think that they're sure exactly
I don't think
who
they
their guy
don't
is.
know. It's just I don't think they don't know exactly who's going to be available.
That's my point. Is I think that they're
yeah.
not settled as to what they're doing exactly.
Yep.
He's going right now as RB62, averaging right around 222nd pick in the draft. So that's a little surprising to me. This is a guy who went over 1,000 yards last year in a Bill O'Brien offense, guys. They don't. Yeah, they don't throw to the running back a whole lot. So the running back's heavy involvement is in the running game. And not only that, but Duke Johnson's there. So Duke Johnson was getting the passing and third down work primarily. But he still went over 1,000 yards. He's not a slow man. Like he's fast enough. He doesn't fumble as much as the guys who are in Seattle. So Seattle drafted another running back as well. They signed Carlos Hyde. I think there's a lot of signals in my mind that maybe they're not secure as to what they're doing. Looks like Rashad Penny. Is it Rashad?
Yeah, Rashad Penny. Rashad Penny on the pup list.
Yeah, he's looking like he's going to miss at least 6 weeks. He's not fully recovered from his injury.
And Chris Carson's coming back from a fractured hip, so it's not like okay, we're not. We don't want to count on injuries or anything like that. Of course, that's not something we do. But you have a guy coming back from a fractured hip, and he's a running back. You just don't know what that's going to look like.
Look, you've got a high volume run offense, and even last year when both of those guys were quote unquote healthy, because I don't think that they were both really truly healthy at any point last year. But when they were both arguably healthy, they were still getting split of carries, and I think that Carlos Hyde actually presents standalone value right now. Yeah. So I think that you can reasonably go and draft him if you wanted with one of your last picks that you're making that isn't a kicker or defense.
Right.
And if you're in a league that's going 20, 22 rounds, Carlos Hyde better get picked, and it better be you picking him, because there is every likelihood that he's in a solid timeshare that he gets immediate value. And if there's any injuries or anybody ends up on COVID IR, he slots right in as a running back one. He could fit right into your roster as a flex play. So that's a great opportunity.
Easily.
All right, so who do you have as your third here, Justin?
For my third, I have DeAndre Washington, and he's Kansas City Chiefs now. He was a former, I could still say probably Oakland Raiders. That was the last team he played for, was when he was still in Oakland. So I
think he was there for 4 years or something. 3 years.
I'll still say Oakland Raiders for them, but he's ADP running back 76, overall 266, and it's one of those things where Trayveon Williams did opt out. They drafted Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I mean, he's definitely the presumed number one. That's not what I'm saying here, but Darwin Thompson and Darrell Williams are also behind Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and I don't really know what you're going to get out of those two. They both had kind of somewhat flashes, but also just like kind of things, because Trayveon Williams was banged up last year, and they had to bring LaShawn McCoy in. So that kind of gives you an idea of what they thought of Darwin Thompson and Darrell Williams. And, they bring in DeAndre Washington for a 1-year deal. I kind of think he might be the presumed backup to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And this is a high-powered offense, so you're going to probably see him on the field quite a bit. And he was no real slouch with the Raiders. You know what I mean? Like, he flashed here or there with them. So I think he could be somewhat of a guy, and it's definitely worth a end-of-the-roster type bench stash.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's who solid. All right, so for our last player today, I have as my third COVID deep sleeper running back 63, going around the 210th pick on average right now, and that's Joshua Kelley of the Los Angeles Chargers.
Think
Good about it, guys.
Saying that right?
Yeah. Think about this one, guys. This guy is in a potential timeshare for backup right now. Nobody really knows who the backup is in this situation to Austin Eckler, but Eckler was only lead dog last year in this backfield. Before then, he was the lightning to Melvin Gordon's thunder. And so who is going to take up that mantle of Melvin Gordon's role? That's the question. And it's also a question whether or not that's the direction they're really, truly going to go. But he's fighting with Justin Jackson for that opportunity to determine who's going to actually end up with the bigger workload out of the two. But this guy's a 4th-round pick. It seems likely that he's actually going to get the first opportunity at the backup job, or at least at the Melvin Gordon role potentially. And so that turns into something that's got real value right off the bat for you. And at minimum, he's a handcuff to Eckler. So again, like we've talked, anybody ends up on COVID IR, you've got to consider a player like this. And if you're in a super deep league, then this is a guy that you need to really consider. He could turn in a really solid year for you. This is an offense that has a rookie QB as well as Tyrod Taylor. And so they're going to lean on tight ends and they're going to lean on running backs.
Real quick, Kyle, I want to jump in here. And I don't know if you can really even call him a handcuff to Austin Eckler, because I don't think he's going to have the role like Austin Eckler is going to have. The role of a
he's
workhorse.
Very different. Yeah,
it's very different, because I just don't think that's something that the Chargers are willing to hand to him. And
he's not a workhorse back.
Yeah, so it's
Eckler
I don't know if we would even call it a handcuff, because I think he could possibly have some standalone value. I do like Justin Jackson a little bit as well, so it's very curious to see how. I think training camp is really going to – I mean, that's the only thing we got.
Yeah.
We don't have any preseason games to figure out how this is all going to roll out.
Yeah, but the talk is that as a 4th-round pick, they're going to give him the opportunity to take this job right off the bat,
which is a better draft pedigree than both Austin Eckler and I think Justin Jackson. Yeah.
So he's not anything like Eckler at all. He's a big back. So this is a guy that I think everybody should consider, especially if you're in those deeper leagues. This is one of those guys who's a stash and see kind of person. He could end up legitimizing himself this season. And if you're in a keeper or a dynasty league, he better be on a roster somewhere.
You're welcome.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah. So that's it for us, guys on COVID deep running back sleepers this season. We might hit sleepers one more time or something. I don't know. People seem to like them. Comment if you've got some super deep sleepers. Obviously, we're only talking about 3. There's got to be at least 50 that people should be considering just in the running back realm, right? Yeah. But go ahead and throw some of those down there in the comments section.
I'm going to go ahead and throw the name down, and also why.
Yeah.
Don't just throw the name out there, but tell us a little bit of why.
Why do you think so? But I'm going to go ahead and throw on the screen here both of our most recent sleeper episodes. We've got regular sleepers, deep sleepers, and then now we're doing the COVID deep sleepers. Check all of those episodes out. Get a lot of good names. We don't double up on them at all, so you're getting information about different guys. And we thank you again for being a fan of the Upside. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.
See you guys.